to Sheffield Forum Live. Woo! Woo! Please. Come on, my dears. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone for coming tonight. We know it's a beautiful night outside, and yeah, so we really treasure you being here. We have 3 incredible talks tonight. Talks-ish. And I saw the sound check, man, and it's amazing, so I can't wait for that. And yeah, I'm really looking forward for everyone to see it. We took over Sheffield Forum about 18 months ago now, and we are repositioning it from, I don't know if, hands up who's been on Sheffield Forum before? Hands up who's been on it in the last 15 years? Last 5 years? Just me. Oh, and Joe, thanks Joe. And, you know, it's a relic of a past time really. It's a place that predates modern social media, and it's kind of, you know, it had possibly lost its way in some ways, and we think there's a great opportunity to revitalise it as a platform for long-form conversation about Sheffield, and, you know, to kind of be everything that Facebook and Twitter trolls are not, and it's a work in progress. So, but we'd love for you to visit the forum again, have a look at it. If there's threads and conversations about tonight, to get involved, and yeah, have a good evening tonight as well, if you would. The running order for tonight is as follows. We have got Dr. Kate Allatt, Dr. James Whitworth. So this is one more doctor than last time. That's great. Then we've got an interval. Followed by Mr. Rota's Mensa. Sorry, so I hope you all have a brilliant time tonight, and please welcome to the stage Dr. Kate Allatt.
Hello everybody. Thanks all for coming. What a horrible night it's been. I'm not going to say too much. I'm just going to tell you a little story about my life over the last 12 years. I'm going to take you back to 2010, and the reason for what happened during that last 12 years was because I was written off, and I chose, and I didn't really feel I had any choice at the time, to respond to that in the way I did. So I'm going to take you back to 2010. I was 39. I was a 70-mile-a-week fell runner. I got 3 kids who are 4, 8 and 10. I ran my own marketing business. My husband, who's now an ex, he was abroad working, so I was juggling, working full-time, 3 kids, no family support, running, life was crazy, and I decided during that whole crazy period that for my 40th year, because I was 39, in the June 2010, I was going to climb Kilimanjaro via the Western Breach. Does anybody know that? It's the route people die on. It's not the charity route, which is also quite hard, but it's the one that people die on. So I'd organised this route, I'd even paid my deposit, and I decided that as a marketeer, to get more money for my trip, I needed to go on the radio and speak to Paulette at BBC Radio Sheffield to try and raise funds, because I was doing it for Bluebell Wood Children's Hospice. So the interview went really well. I was very buoyant, very bouncy. I did have a headache actually at the time, but I ignored that. And that was just 3 days before what actually happened. It was going to change my life forever. On the 6th of February 2010, I was running around Chatsworth with a headache for 2 hours with my Saturday morning running girls. And on Sunday, I was on life support machine, just 12 hours later. I'd had a huge brainstem stroke. There was nothing in the family that was going to suggest I'd have one of those. I guess you put it down to stress and lifestyle. But either way, I had a horrible stroke, which was at the time like a pneumatic drill going off in my head, which wasn't painful because you don't have any sensation in your head, but it was very distressing. And I remember coming downstairs, my 2 kids were fighting in the bath, and I came downstairs looking very grey. My ex-husband said to me, I'll make you a cup of tea, namely my favourite Earl Grey. And as he brought it into me, I said, what's happening to me? But the words that came out of my mouth weren't what's happening to me, they were blah, 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 blah. And that was the point at which my stroke was happening, and I sat on the sofa in the lounge and fell off and landed on the floor. And the last thing I heard was the paramedic saying to my ex-husband, who said to him, what's wrong with her, she had a fit. And he said, no, it's much more serious than that. And then I blanked out. But what I didn't tell you is, 4 hours earlier, I'd taken myself to the hospital because I had this headache for weeks. I was too busy to deal with it. I couldn't have time to be ill. And the junior doctor at the Northern General on a Sunday afternoon in February, not a good time to be ill, said, it's just stress, love, go home, go and have a rest. Here's some cocodamol. Pat on the head. 4 hours after that, I collapsed on the floor, and the same junior doctor was on duty when I came back in. Apparently went very grey at the time. But no joking aside, I went straight back into hospital. I was on life support machine. My family were gathered because the damage to my pond there in the brainstem was so substantial that if I survived, then I'd be basically, this isn't PC, but it's me, I'm talking about a cabbage, and I'd have no quality of life, and therefore now is the time when they could turn the machine off, to turn the machine off. Now fortunately my ex-husband, seemed to have a nice day that day towards me, he decided no, but it wasn't quite as I thought, because he said no, you can't do that because the kids need her. He didn't say, I love her. But anyway, he saved me. I was spared my execution. So anyway, 3 days later, I came out of the medically induced coma, and it took me a few days to stop feeling groggy. But when I did, I could think, feel, see, hear everything, but move nothing. I couldn't give anybody a sign that I could understand. I was assumed to be a vegetative. I struggle with that word, but I got it out. And I wasn't vegetative. I was fully cognitive, but I hadn't got any control over any part of my body to move. And so I had the most distressing 2 weeks, whereby people died. I had the worst separation anxiety for my children. I don't know if you can imagine. I had to endure indignity. I had to endure patient shouting. Let's be honest, in ICU, 50% of people die and 50% of people go out of there. So the odds aren't great. And it was boring. I had literally a clock on the wall to look at. I was obviously nil by mouth. Nothing happened. Nobody talked to me. They talked over me, the doctors. It was really horrific. I found myself having to go to worlds in my mind just to entertain myself. And yet it was the most distressing experience. But I have to say, 2 weeks after, I still remained paralysed, but my best friend, who actually is the reason I think I'm here, stood by me, and she noticed a small flicker in my eyelids. And she thought the next time she came, she could maybe try and use that to harness a way to communicate with me. So the next day she came back with 2 sheets of paper, one with a stick man on so she could point to where my pain was. 'Cause can anybody imagine being lying in one position for 4 hours without being moved? I mean, if you could do it for 10 minutes, I'd give you a drink. But, things hurt after a while. So she had a stick man on one sheet and pointed to it, and then the idea was if I flickered my eyes, it would mean there was a pain there, and she'd get me pain relief. And on the other sheet was the letters A to Z written out, where she'd point to one and see if I flickered once for no, twice for yes, then she could try and open up my world. I was locked in, I had locked-in syndrome. you know, it's like being buried alive. That's effectively what it's like. And so anyway, I'll never ever forget this. You know, my kids are very precious to me, but this moment was like every single Christmas times a million, every single birthday like times a million, every other good time that's ever happened in my life. Because that one day she came, she unlocked my world, and I managed in 20 minutes to blink out, flutter out 3 letters. And from that, she managed to understand that I was still on the inside, which she always believed, and to get me the medication I needed to help my existence there nicely. And those 3 letters were SLE, and they took 20 minutes, and it was her painstakingly pointed to A, to B, to C, to D, all the way to S, where I fluttered twice. She'd often miss that because she'd be writing and not see the movement that was delayed. So, and then back to A to go A to L, and then back to A to go to E. Unfortunately, she guessed the word sleep from SLE. And then she said, and I blinked twice, or fluttered twice. And then she said, what can't sleep? I fluttered twice. And then she said, at night, I fluttered twice. So those 3 letters just opened up my world. And from that moment on, I did sleep better at night. Because sleeping all day, because you've got nothing else to occupy, you've got no food to punctuate your day, you've got visitors that half the time would pretend to be asleep for. Do you know, it's boring, so it was a real job. I used to tell myself, you can sleep up until, because they start really early in hospital, you know, from 6 till midday, you're allowed myself to nap. But after midday, I had to literally keep myself awake all day, otherwise I would just be awake all night. And being awake on ICU is not pretty, it's not nice. Not, you know, they do a great job and it kept me alive, but, you know, the hallucinations, I mean, the pain, the indignity, it goes on. But anyway, I'm going to fast forward. I was in there 9 weeks. And it was only week 8 where this thumb moved 3 millimetres. Nothing else moved below my eyelids, apart from that. And I had a slight bit of head movement. Week 9, I was desperate to get out of there thinking I'm going to die, you know, because the odds aren't great. And I remember I was naughty. A nurse, I thought I couldn't leave ICU until I could prove that I could smell. My sense of smell went. And so I had to just plan that when they did this test, I would, with my little bit of head movement, I would mimic me smelling something awful. And it worked, you know, the junior doctor, I'm really sorry if I can use a doctor anymore, but she put in my eye line alcohol wipes on a piece of cotton or something, and then rubbed it under my nose, and I did that. So she thought, oh, she could smell that, and then she got the spell board out, and she said, what did you just smell? I went, alcohol wipes. And she did this again, so she tested it the second time. I think she used a nail varnish remover. So that meant, in my mind, I could go. But I mean, I always broke rules there and everything else. I also have to remember telling you one thing. My ex-husband, that spell board I talked about was formalised after a while. And my ex-husband, I had the most awful leg cramps regularly. I mean, you can imagine, you get a leg cramp and you can't move it, so you can't tell anybody you've got it, you're just going to endure it. And he came one day to visit this spell board on my chest. And he picked it up, seeing I was in discomfort. And I tried to spell the words out, leg cramp. So we set off at A, blink once all the way to L, wrote it down, blink twice, back to A, blinked all the way on to E, wrote it down, where I blinked twice, A and then to G, and then I looked at him, and I thought, that's the end of the word. But he goes back to A, and I blink all the way once to C, where I blinked twice. And he threw the board on my chest. He went, Kate, you've lost your marbles. There's no such word as LEGC. Now, if at that moment I could have jumped up and shove that board where the sun don't shine, I would have done quite happily. I mean, it was as frustrating as me as it was for him, in fairness. But anyway, week 9, I got an offer to go on to rehab. It was a friend of a friend through the rugby club. That's how I jumped up the pecking order. Anyway, it was my bolt for freedom. So, very quickly on here, I went to rehab, Osborne 4. The team were amazing, but it was very scary from going one-to-one care to one of 24 on a ward, where you can't communicate, you can't use a nurse call button. All I used to do was sit and stare, because I was so poorly, I was right by the nursing station computer, and just stare all day to see if someone would break my eye gaze. I might not have needed something, but I'd do it anyway, just in case I did need something. It was very stressful. And for 6 weeks, I had to go. I mean, listen, I had to go to music therapy. Okay, this is really shit. Can you imagine? You're in your wheelchair, dribbling like Hooch the dog, and you go once a week to this very lovely girl, music therapist, and had to wear a helmet with a probe on. And the idea was to improve my neck movement. And so all it meant was I'd sit in my wheelchair and I'd do that with the probe. That would break a laser that would play a keyboard. And I was like, is this what my life's come to? Anyway, I sat that off. I was always poorly. I was always asleep when she came, sadly. But anyway, for 6 weeks, nothing much happened in rehab. And then I thought, I'd got this 6-week review. I thought, brilliant. 6 weeks, they're going to ramp up my therapy. Happy days. Because I was a runner, I was used to doing hard work. I get in there, my mum, my husband, my best mate, the whole multidisciplinary team were there with the rehab consultant and me. I'm thinking, yeah. Get there, the rehab consultant that opens up the meeting and goes, thank you all for coming, I've nothing more to add. So, my tracheotomy is blowing and I'm thinking, shit, this isn't kind of what I was expecting. And next to him, the nurse said, no change. Next to the nurse, the OT said, no change. Next to the OT, the neurophysio said, a few little flickers you can't feel in the shoulders, but nothing. Then the neurophysio came up with a blinder. She said, I think she's depressed. To which I thought, no shit, Sherlock. So then the rehab consultant said, well, we need to be talking discharge to a nursing care home. Now, that was the point at which I had to be removed from the room, hoisted back in like a sack of potatoes in my bed, and my best friend would see how distressed I was. Got the spellboard out. It's in my book, this book, it's on Amazon, and I've got loads of copies of it. No, seriously, in there it says, she got the board and I spelled out 3 words, and those 3 words were standing by me. And I have. I'm sorry, she has. She really has. But that moment changed my life around. I'm the middle child with the chip on the shoulder who never had the attention. I was always trying to get that attention from the parents, always overachieving. And I always had to work really hard. And I was obviously fit, and I was obviously very driven because of what I did, my work rate. And that moment of being written off changed my life. They didn't do it deliberately, and that's the thing. They didn't do it deliberately. They did it, and it just happened to be that it was the wrong person they did it to because it made me fight like hell. So from that moment, literally, my mum was away in America on a 3-week jaunt doing a Thelma and Louise while I was in hospital on my birthday. Anyway, not bitter. And she, I just thought, sod you all, basically. I'll show you. So what I do, I spend every minute of the day, willing my body, and that's in the book. I now know it's about repetitive, frequent, intensive actions that help improve recovery after stroke. And I did it thousands of times a day. I mean, I didn't watch the shit TV in the afternoon that you get to watch after your therapy's finished. I just was constantly. So, for example, if that finger moved like that, I'd be trying to get that movement, and then I'd be trying to get that finger moved. And all the time, so I'd be working on that, and then I'd just try and do that with my wrist. That, it was really hard, your arms were really heavy, your holding your head up was heavy. And never ever stopped. And I'll give you another example. I've been lying in bed, and this side didn't move for 5 months. And I wanted to run again. Because the reason I was doing all this work was because they'd written me off, and that spawned some massive goals for me. I was going to hug my kids again. I was going to speak again because I'd been mute. I was mute, never to speak ever again, if you can believe that. And I wanted to walk off the bloody hospital ward and video it. I wanted to run by my first anniversary. I wanted to eat again. And yeah, they were fairly ambitious goals. And I had them printed out in the wall, and all the nurses laughed at my ridiculous goals. But anyway, that's what I was aiming for. So I was working all day. So back to this side, I'm lying in bed after 5 months, nothing's moved. And I just used to look at my big left toe, and I'd say to myself, and I'd have an argument with myself. You know, sometimes we can have an argument in the room on the own. I can do it with myself in my head. And I'd say, come on, just move, just bloody move. And I did it all day, every day. Did nothing else, apart from focus on that. Because I knew I'd never run again otherwise. And then 3 weeks after that, I got a little movement in my big toe. And all I could think about as a marketeer, I'm not really popular, is if I could make that move, that being the farthest from my brain, then game on for the whole other side. That was it. It was all I thought about. So I worked like a dog, and I have to tell you, there was research being published recently, or a few years ago from Japan, saying the optimum amount of times for repetitive, frequent, intensive movements is somewhere in addition over 600 times a day. I was blowing that out of the water 12 years ago, just because I wanted to be home to my kids. The separation was a huge motivation, massive, and my fitness and my drive was also really helpful. But I would say that I was a difficult patient. I had, I broke rules. I'm going to share them with you, some of them. I remember when I was fitted out in my wheelchair, and it was a summer's day, and it had a joystick. It's like the best thing. I've been pushed everywhere, and that little bit of freedom was amazing. And I remember on this summer day in Osborne Ford, the fire door was open, and I just saw it as a bolt for freedom. And I would top speed about 4 miles an hour. And I'm like, feeling like I've been in Lewis Hamilton. And I'm at the door, and I'm across the grass, which is now a car park. And but I didn't know that the rather large ward manager spotted me at the corner of his eye. And he's like shouting back, Kate! And anyway, he finally caught up with me, having given him the rods a few times. And I have to tell you that was purely a rehab move. My friend taught me the rods, which came out to all the nurses, the misery nurses. I didn't like. Anyway, you've too young for listening, aren't you? Anyway, so when he finally caught up with me, I got a massive bollocking. And then when my husband came to see me that night, he couldn't come to see me until he'd been issued with the first ever verbal warning the hospital had ever given out. And if I got another one, I'd be off the wood. And like, who gets a verbal warning in hospital? And another time I'd had the trachea removed, and I thought they were going to put it back, so I was on the cough assist, and it was really bad. and I didn't want it back because it was hampering my progress, my rehab. So over my dead body, literally, they wouldn't have to put it back. And I was on this permanent SATS monitor because the oxygen levels were going really low. And my friend came in to visit me one day, Alison again, and I looked at her, looked at the SATS monitor on my finger, looked at her, looked at the SATS monitor, and she just assumed it was uncomfortable. You would, wouldn't you? So she removed it. and so I'm totally paralysed at this point. I'm lying in bed. So she's removed it, and the whole thing is alarmed. I've got the whole crash tune on my bedside, carped it, and Alison stood there with the SATS monitor in hand, and she said, "What have you done?" Paralysed when she goes, "She did it!" Anyway, but I do have to tell you, I worked really hard. But one of the most defining moments, and the reason I'm a speaker, is down to my 4-year-old Woody. This story is God's honest truth. I didn't have told you it's truthful, but Mark, Harvey, India, and Woody, my family, came to visit me one Friday. And Woody was just a typical naive 5-year-old. And he shrugged his shoulders like that. Mum. At this point, I was communicating. I went from blinking to communicate to grid 2, where I use a button, to writing if someone held a paper. And so I was in the stage of writing, and Woody goes, "Don't write my name, say my name, Mummy." Now, I hadn't seen the kids for 6 months at this point, at home. They'd come to visit me. And any mum, I define a mum here, not to try their absolute best to try and please their child. And I'd not made a sound in 6 months at all. And I just assumed I was mute. And I went, "Hey!" Now, I'm sorry, that was really good. And he started crying. It just sounded a bit like Woody, who is it? Anyway, Harvey, my middle child, said, "Say my name, say my name." And I went, "Oh." And then India and Mark, and they said, "Say my name, say my name." And I'm like, "You're not going to laugh." So basically, then they all cried. And they all went off because the ex said, "Let's go to McDonald's." So they were like crying, thinking, "Was it that bad? Shit." It's only all weekend, that's all I needed. All weekend, I worked, forget the foot, forget the arm, forget everything else. It was the tongue and lip function, lip sync, and the diaphragm, trying to get air, because that collapsed. So I was trying it all weekend on my own. There's no rehab at the weekends at all. So all weekend I'm like trying to make sounds, trying to blow, trying to move my lips move, which hadn't moved. And I swear to God, on Monday morning, my favourite nurse Oliver came in the room with a big box. And I was far away from the nurse's station at this point, so I was better. Not better, but better than I was. And he came and he went, "Morning, Kate." And I went, "Morning, Oliver." And he dropped the box. And he said, "It's moments like this I came into nurse." And he cried. And I went, "What the fuck?" Anyway, what it turns out that the speech and language therapist had said to my husband on a mountain bike ride, I was around a mountain bike with her, said he wanted to get the trachea out, and she said, "Mark, you do realise Kate will never ever speak again." That's why they cried. And, always believe, but it was that 4-year-old, there's a reason I do what I do now, really, basically, because I lost my business and everything else. So I'm going to fast forward. I did eat again in hospital, and I tell you, I lost 2 stone. I was only 9 stone going in because I was a massive runner. So, what woman has to put weight on? Right. So we're talking like family-sized caramel chocolates, took around the big bags of salt and crisps. I mean, I went the whole hog, and I think it took me only 2 months to put back all my weight. I mean, I just ate everything, but I had to practice, obviously, for medical reasons. Anyway, I did do that, and I did speak again. I did hug my kids. But when I came home, prior to just coming home, I walked out of hospital. That was another goal of mine. It's on YouTube. If anyone wants to delve down my YouTube channel, you'll find it there, let me out. And it was a very emotional day because I thought I could literally get out of my wheelchair and go, right, see you everybody, thanks. It's been great. And actually when I saw my speech and language and OT at the door, I wasn't expecting to be quite so upset. I mean, my life had changed. The Kate that was never going to be again. And that moment of walking out 4 times further than I'd ever walked, I might add, so I smashed that goal, but it was a very emotional goal. And when I came home, for 2 weeks, I rotated which child I slept with each night, and it was truly special. And I was really 2 weeks into it that things really changed. My youngest son, my middle son, Harvey, said to his dad, I overheard in the garage, he said, Mum's back, but not as she was. And that really hurt because I'd worked like hell to get home, to be well, and yet I wasn't accepted for being the mum that was, and that's still problematic now, actually. But that broke my heart. But what really also broke my heart was not the fact that I never got a refund for Kilimanjaro, can I just say? I'd lost my business, I'd lost my work, I'd lost my purpose, I'd lost my ability to parent, I'd lost my physicality, I'd lost my running, I'd lost friends, I'd lost family, I'd lost my well-being, and that hit me like a rock. And I went online like people do, peer mentoring, and all the stroke sites were all moaning, oh my life's shit now. It's like, how's that going to help me? I need to be around positivity. And then the phone goes. I am not joking, this changed my life. The phone went because it was the producer for BBC Radio Sheffield. He said, I'm just following up the story we did with you in February. How was Kilimanjaro? And I said, in a very shit voice, because I couldn't speak, it didn't happen. And the next day they got a taxi and I went on to Bodie's show. And they played the clip of the interview before, in February, when I was really buoyant and marketing and everything was great and blah blah. And then they cut to the voice I had then, and it was a very broken, shattered woman. And that interview won them awards. It went on Jeremy Vine as usual, but after being on Jeremy Vine, the whole interview went global. It was like, reasonably good-looking woman in early 40s, had this awful condition and recovered from it. The worldwide doctors and media went ballistic. I went on every show there was, from This Morning to Sky to South Africa to RTL Germany to South America to New Zealand to Australia to Canada to America. Went on, and India, and that wasn't. I went on all the radio stations as well. I just sat in one booth doing, back-to-back radio interviews. I didn't get paid for that, which is a bit stupid being a marketeer, but I did. And anyway, that isn't the most exciting bit. What the most exciting bit is that exposure gave me a platform because all of a sudden my inbox was going crazy. My father, my sister, my brother, my daughter have had what you've had. We've been written off too. Can you help, please? They've lowered our expectations. They're not expecting this person to improve at all. But can you help us? The demand was such that not only did I start writing a book running free the day I left hospital with the publishers, which went on the shelves within 6 months of leaving hospital. It's gone internationally published. I'm really proud of it because I'll tell you what, I wouldn't say what I said there. No, I've been big shit. Anyway, but just 3 months after I left hospital, the demand was such that I had to set up my own charity. like you do. And it was called Fighting Strokes, the strapline being no promises, just possibility. I was never ever peddling false hope that somehow everyone could do what I did. Never. Although I was assumed for doing that a lot in the medical profession initially. But not now. I think I've got the respect now. I've been on the circuit a long time doing what this training I do. But so I set up this charity, and I have to tell you, the most amazing things happen. And I'm going to pick 3 people out. There's been over 750 in this 5 years. The charity was run, the trustees walk like we do in lots of small charities. Anyway, Christine Waddell, I have to tell you this story. She's the same age as me. She'd been locked in for 17 years. She was at home with 24-hour carers. She had a headrest and a wheelchair. She hadn't moved, and all she could do was use eye tracking to communicate on Facebook to people. She had the worst, dirtiest, muckiest sense of humour. She was a riot. She was so funny. Anyway, she saw the blurb about me and reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Can you help me?" And I thought, well, that's interesting. So we had a WhatsApp with her and had a video chat with her. And during the chat, she yawned, and I said, "Christy," because I could tell that she was from the northeast. She had a real sense of humour. I said, "Christy, am I boring you?" And she just laughed, like she did, just from side to side. And I said, "Would you like me to help you improve that? You know, I never know, you might be able to do something." Anyway, she indicated this. Put the phone down, make this really quick. Put the phone down. I spoke to Neural Pathways in the Northeast, a private rehab company, and I said, "Look, I've got a guinea pig, she's got no money, she's willing to try, she's been locked in for years. Just imagine the kudos if you helped her improve. It would do your business masses." Anyway, they agreed. They said, "We've seen you, we'll do it." You know. They came once a week in 3 months. They lost the headrest that she'd had for 17 years. The head's a really heavy part of your body. She was able to hold it. That's not the most exciting thing. The most exciting thing, that kick-started muscles that had been dead in nerves in the body. Within 6 months, they'd gone from once a week to twice a week. She was able to sit on a plinth and move side to side. Within another year, she's actually able to stand up on a plinth and just be held with one finger on her shoulder. And with 18 months of that phone call, so basically we're talking 18 and a half years, they say lose it or use it or lose it rubbish. She posted a picture on Facebook of her eating the biggest piece of chocolate cake. The first time in 19 years that girl had eaten. She had to go on a diet straight up. Anyway, and then the other one, Claudia, I went to go see her in Poland, 24, brainstem stroke. She was in there, I spent 4 hours by her bedside. She could move this hand like that. And I was sitting there, and I was having a go at her because her boyfriend got me over. And I said, "Claudia, you're sitting here watching crap TV, get some bloody work done." Anyway, by the time I travelled 10 hours back to Sheffield, boyfriend sent me a WhatsApp in a video. She'd done that. That was on a Saturday with no rehab in 10 hours. Just because she tried, she did it, but she was given the permission to believe she could. I went to see Rob in New York, DJ, very trendy. And they flew me out there, and he was moving his thumb at the time. 6 months after that, I got a WhatsApp image from his wife saying, with Rob standing up in leg braces, saying, "Rob standing in his new leg brace. All things are possible. You taught us that." And very quickly, my life since then has been incredible. I had to do more inspirational speaking. I do doctor training now, which is amazing. They really they respond very well to me now, and it's very heartwarming. I do a lot of work with the NHS leadership. I did my TEDx, I met the Queen. I even got invited to the opening ceremony at the Olympics, because Nick Clegg thought I was half decent. And I met Boris Johnson there, and I shouldn't have given him bloody advice on party gatherings. But I didn't. I was in crotchless knickers at the time, but that's a whole new story. You can tweet me at Kate Allatt and I'll tell you. Anyway, and also, who gets research on a tweet? £250,000 after just a simple tweet I sent out. In 6 months of that tweet, we've got a whole research team together. the research has been published. It's called the SCAPS feasibility study. But I believed in this research, and I went whichever way I was going to go. I was going to make it happen. I wasn't going to go the normal route. I never have. And I just have to say, because I mean, there's loads more I could say, but I'm just taking constant all the time. I not only ran on my first anniversary. It was only 8 yards, but within 10 months of that, I was actually asked to run the Percy Pud, because in 2007, I came third in my age category. Get in there. And they knew what had happened to me, and they felt so sorry for me, that they said I could open up the race. And I ran/walked/ran a mile and a half. And you know what? That for me was the most, beyond hugging the kids and everything else and all the achievements since, it's been pretty incredible. I've got the honorary doctorate for seemingly being an influencer. That's not a social media influencer, that's just a gobshite. Anyway, I think my closing remarks are, they wrote off the wrong person. And the last 12 years have been a roller coaster. And I think really what I believe in is, if something really, really, really matters to you, you honestly can achieve anything, but it's going to matter, and you've got to try really hard, and you've got to expect to fail, and it will be painful, but you will get there if it matters enough. And that's it.
Sorry, I didn't give you a full introduction at the start. I was a little nervous. But I've got here international author, TEDx speaker, and research pioneer. I'm sure you can all agree, absolute badass as well. Give it up for Kate, everyone, please.